Good morning. I'm Amy Ryan, Deputy Editor of Metering and Smart Energy International, coming to you from the African Utility Week studio. Today I have with me Christo Nicholls, CEO of Smart Utility Solutions at Edison Power Group. Welcome, Christo.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you about utility projects in Africa.
Yes.
What are some of the utility projects that are you most excited about and why?
I would say there's actually one category that emerged over the last, I would say, 8 months, and that is a more end-to-end, what I would call collaborative value-adding project. In other words, we are seeing an ever-growing trend now where customers are asking, guys, we have a myriad of problems embedded within our domain. Can you come with a solution that actually addresses all of them, not only a particular element? So the project that I'm seeing is emerging and that I'm excited we're also part of is that we are seeing now a combination where a project deliverable include supply of water and electricity in an alternative form. It include the normalization of the distribution network of both water and electricity. It includes the, let's call it the cleanup and normalization of your utilization base, addressing questions. Do we actually know who is using what utility where and at what quantity? It involves the modernization of metering infrastructure, both water and electricity. And what excites me even more, and this is for me the most exciting part, is I would say, the enhanced sensitivity around, but guys, yes, do all of these wonderful stuff, technology and audits and surveys, but make sure we have a facility and properly trained resources to ensure that the benefit that we're after is materialized. So you're now getting this whole end-to-end collaborative type of project.
End-to-end solutions.
That's right, yes.
That's what customers want.
That's what they want now. And even in terms of their dialogue with us as service providers, they're becoming much more explicit in terms of the fact that they would say, guys, we do not want you to come and punt technology to us.
Yeah.
We do not want you to come and punt capacity building to us. What we want you to come and bring, and ideally at your cost, at your risk, please come and show us what you believe can work actually works. And at the point where it's working and we're comfortable, yes, we'll discuss revenue share, but then we'll engage into a sustainable knowledge and solution transfer into our own domain.
For the long term?
For the long term, that's
okay.
right. Which is beneficial for both us as service providers as well as the customers.
So tell me, smart metering in Africa, what do you think are some of the major factors plaguing smart metering projects in Africa and then stifling the adoption of wider smart energy solutions and uptake by utilities?
My honest opinion is just to start off is the actual labeling of the initiative smart metering.
Okay.
Just by the notion of that label, very often the customer conclude that is what I'm getting, a meter that is smart. And that very often from a dialogue perspective is the end of it. And I think that in essence is the root cause why we don't see the penetration rate we want to see of this. Because what it actually is a solution opposed to a technology being punted. Because yes, when we use this term in a fairly loose way of smart metering, it does involve a meter with smart functionalities, but it's about 1/10 of what the solution is all about. Because from a technology perspective, on top of that, you suddenly now evoke or unlock a whole suite of telecommunication technologies that needs to be linked into this meter as a means to transfer data, for example, to a back office. You now unlock a completely different type of back office that's not only addressing CRM elements with regards to customer management in the domain. It now crosses worlds from CRM to billing to technical asset management all in one. And until the customer don't understand that if we talk about this thing called smart metering, we are talking about this whole suite of offering, which in parallel also now demands, please bring properly trained resources to the table. Please bring properly equipped facilities. And I would say the most important thing is please revise current policies that underpins the benefits required. So I think that is the first problem and real root cause preventing the growth. And then secondly as well is that very often when a dialogue gets started around smart metering, it's normally biased towards technology. And smart metering as a solution was never birthed for that particular role. It was birthed so that we can have dialogue around benefits we want in a smart way. And until that paradigm shift doesn't happen, it's going to be very difficult to actually create the momentum that I would say industry requires more than what they need in order to get to where we want to be as a continent in parallel with the growing global economy.
And tell me, in terms of technical aspects, in terms of the actual installation and more on the operational side, where do you see the most, what is the most challenging part of that?
I would see the biggest challenge when it comes to the operation of this whole element, and if I would position it within the various stages of rolling out a typical smart metering solution, then the biggest challenge we see is that the end user is not properly informed and educated on the benefits for them. A classic example, let's jump to Canada for BC Hydro. BC Hydro, brilliant project, but at the start I think they had up to a 2-year delay because of a simple element where an old lady, for example, officially registered a case against the utility saying, but guys, I believe that if you install this meter, people will be able to spy on me and eventually get access to my house. It's a simple notion, but if you look at why the lady had that view, she was just never properly informed. But ma'am, yes, there is this risk. But let's just educate you in a simple way how we mitigated this through a broader initiative around the solution. But more important, let's indicate to you how your life will benefit. And one thing I believe we did well as Edison Power, because we were fortunate to get the tender to roll out the first 100,000 meters in South Africa in City Power. Through, for example, focusing on the benefit, we enabled a utility like City Power to bring something to Africa that has never been done before, using smart meters. Like, for example, the one thing that was a huge topic over the last couple of days was the whole notion of load limiting. And in our country, where load shedding is still a reality despite all the different views, what smart metering introduced was an alternative way to still address the broader objective: can we please reduce electricity, but without the inconvenience of switching electricity off. And these are some of the tangible benefits. If customers, the end users, are aware of it, you'll have a much higher buy-in rate. Because I'll tell you what's the consequence if an end user do not buy in from an operations perspective. Guys like ourselves, we work throughout the day. So you come at home 7 o'clock at night. So that is the time that the installer must try and get access to your premises to install this. Now you as a lady will think twice to let anyone into your premises that time of night. But if you're aware, okay, but this program has been well communicated, there is a portal I can contact to confirm this individual standing at my house right now, is he supposed to be here? Is it the right person? And if anything goes wrong, do you have any support on standby? If all of those customer engagement, education and support elements are in place, your operation becomes a smooth rollout, because challenge does not lie with the technology. The technology is mature. It has been rolled out across the globe. We're talking about millions of these meters and technologies being deployed. It's more how the local end user has bought into the benefit that will be unlocked once they actually buy into this.
Okay, great. Yesterday you participated in an African Utility Week panel discussion around how big data can enhance utility operations.
That's correct.
What are your 3 recommendations for utilities in this regard?
My 3 recommendations would be as follows. 1, before there's any discussion around technology unlocking the collection of data, there should be thorough discussion first in terms of what are the benefits we want to see, assuming this whole value chain from technology collection, people, etc. is resolved. What are the actual benefits we're after? Secondly, that need to be discussed. Now, if these are the benefits we want, what are the legislative policies and bylaws we need to put in place to legitimize the benefit? Because when it comes to data, it's a very sensitive thing. Because an end user can say, yes, Mr. Munich, and a classic example is Woolworths. Woolworths will use buying patterns as a means of big data collection to say, but now we know this individual somehow buy a tie every month in the middle of the month. So their marketing campaign would be in the middle of the month, that individual will get an SMS, we have a special on our ties. Now, unless you've made sure that it's backed up by legal policy, it becomes an illegitimate benefit you're extracting from all this data. So hence, that's the second point. Ensure that that discussion happens and it's directly correlated to the benefits and it underpins this. And then right at the end, I would then make sure that, yes, let's discuss alternatives in terms of technologies, but more importantly, let the alternative pool be a fairly agile pool that we can chop and change as per what we want to. We're not locked down for 20 years, but where we should have a fairly stable platform is make sure that the resourcing internal to the utility that's critical in applying the SOPs attached to once we have this data to unlock the benefit, that whole mechanism is of sort that you don't have the typical problem utilities have in our country, that we train people, but then as soon as they're trained, we lose them. So our retain rate is extremely low. So that would be the three main things. Make sure that you know what the benefits should be. Make sure that the benefit is underpinned by policies that legitimizes the benefit. And then lastly, ensure that your technology choice is agile enough, that it's future-proof, plus that the resource base that you build within the utility always have a strong nucleus.
That training needs to go on for quite extent after rollout.
Definitely.
5-10 years down the line.
Exactly, because the training is focused on benefit materialization, not technology onboarding.
And then, what are your thoughts around whether Africa is ready for big data and its associated considerations, taking into account security, privacy, analytics, those factors?
My opinion is really biased towards a movie I watched with regards to a debate between this black group and this white group. And the white group asked the question, but we agree that black should have freedom, but is this the right time? And the response of the black was, so when is the right time for freedom to be granted? And I have a similar sentiment when it comes to Africa. The question is not, do we think Africa is ready? The question is there any reason why, if Africa is not 100% ready, that we don't come alongside her and help her along the maturity curve? And I think that is my politically correct answer in terms of the question that, do I think Africa is ready? I say because we have a notion of a maturity curve. Whether they're sitting at the bottom, in the middle, on top, they've been ready forever in terms of onboarding this. What I believe we should rather address is, how can we come alongside Africa to effectively assist her in terms of where she's currently at on the maturity curve, to make sure that as we onboard the benefits associated with big data, that we don't overburden Africa in relation to where she's currently at on the maturity curve.
Because we at a certain level, right?
That's right.
We're trying to catch up with the developed world,
That's
and then there's that, in our study for getting to that point over there.
That's right.
There's
now what's quite interesting in terms of that point, what you mentioned, we're trying to catch up, and this is something I personally have a very strong opinion. I say I've been fortunate to be involved in some of the first mass rollouts in the world, in Houston, in San Diego Gas and Electric, South Carolina, Edison. And my sentiment when I started working and focused in Africa was that, guys, this is not a copy and paste exercise. The reason why the US went for this technology was to enhance their billing capability. At this point in time, that's not the need in Africa. The need in Africa has very little to do with us enhancing billing. The need in Africa has to do, is there a way that we can actually grow the trust level of consumers when it comes to service being provided? If we look at our own country, the level of service delivery protest, what it speaks to, we're having a contingent of people that is not satisfied, that's currently in a place of distrust in terms of, you're delivering a service to me that I honestly believe is not worth paying for. So my recommendation would be Africa's view should be how can we use this technology to address that particular notion. And if that's the case, we are not catching up. We are addressing what's unique to us.
Yeah.
Because the reality, this particular element does not live outside Africa. So I think that is the challenge of Africa as well, that it might be first world country technology, but we cannot onboard it hoping to achieve first world country objectives, because it's not really applicable to us in the scale of priority.
That's make an excellent point over there. And then lastly, how do you rate Africa compared to emerging economies in terms of the greatest potential for flexible, smart energy infrastructure development?
I would say compared to, let's compare to what the world would view as emerging economies in India, Brazil. I've had the privilege of working in both countries. I believe that if I would do the comparative analysis in terms of potential of growing this solution and offering, I believe it's equally, if not betterly, positioned to bring this on board because of our unique challenges. And one of the unique challenges within the African continent is this whole notion of the percentage of population that's still rural. So which means wherever you have a notion of a rural population, you have a platform for unlimited growth. So which means we are sitting with something that might look like a constraint in terms of rollout, but in essence it's actually the prime we require to spawn this thing. What the challenge is to come up with technologies that are innovating enough to not necessarily thrive towards the objective of making rural part of mainstream, but making rural smart as rural.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Christo. Thank you for joining us today. It's lovely speaking to you.
Pleasure.
That brings us to the end of our time. I'm Amy Ryan, Deputy Editor of Metering and Smart Energy International.